Yes. You have tuned in to Renewed Mind Revolution podcast with your host, Michelle Cook Hall. Today's podcast is brought to you by Faith versus Fear, Breaking Family Ties, which can be found and available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com. This podcast is designed with you in mind to remind you that you can always click that reset button and start all over again. It's never too late to be great. So now I want you to sit back. I want you to relax. I want you to clear your mind, take in that deep breath, prepare yourself for change as we listen in on Renewed Mind Revolution podcast with your host, Michelle Cook Hall. Let's go. Welcome to Renewed My Revolution podcast with your host, Michelle Cook Hall. As always, it is my honor. It is my pleasure to be able to come and share some tips and some tools with you guys that I know will help you to assist you in becoming the better version of yourselves. Look, we all need that, right? We all need to make sure that we are living the life that we are, number one, designed to live. Number two, reaching our full potential. Number three, a life that we can be proud of. Okay, proud of. So these are just, moments where you can spend some time with me, where we kind of review different topics, different issues, concerns, and effective ways to get you to the point in your life where you want to be and need to be. Will things be perfect? Absolutely not. We are imperfect people, right? In circumstances and just situations just does not allow us to be that way. But we're flawed. We're just, by nature, we're flawed. So there will be problems, there will be issues, there will be hiccups along the road. But the point of this is to minimize as much as we can so that we can live a quality lifestyle. That's what's important, that we're trying to emphasize in this podcast, living a quality lifestyle. I am your host, if you haven't figured it out by now. My name is Michelle Cook Hall, and it is always a good day when I'm able to come and pour out into those who have taken the time and have entrusted me, with their ears. And so that's so important to me because what we put in us is important. So if you've taken the time to say, hey, she has something that I want to listen to, then that means everything to me. You taking that time to do that. So I just want to thank you all for that. And I want to get to the topic today. I want to get you straight to it. You guys know how I am. Some days I feel preachy. Some days we're straight to the books, and then some days I'm just flowing. Well, today is definitely one of those flowing days. It's just something that is on my mind and on my heart, and I want to share with you. So here we go. Now, we're talking about improvements. We're talking about being a better version of yourself. We're talking about, um, you know, evaluating your life, evaluating my life, and seeing the hiccups and noticing the hiccups that we've had in our lives, and realizing that, hey, I need to change. I need to click the reset button, because that's what this podcast is about. Clicking the reset button and starting all over again. Okay, so but here's the reality. Here's a major hiccup. One of the major hiccups, and I'm talking about whatever it is that's going on in your life. It could be health, it could be social status, it could be um, uh, religion, it could be financial, it could whatever. Okay, jobs, mental health. It could be a variety of reasons why you have decided to tune in to me today. Okay, but there is one factor that is what I consider to be something that was out of your realm and out of my realm of control. Okay, out of your realm and out of my realm of control. There's many things that are out of our control that happens, but I'm going to talk about something specifically that can actually affect all of the things that I've just mentioned, all the things that I just listed. Okay, and that is our family structure, our upbringing. Okay, our upbringing, our culture, our community. Okay, so this is what I'm saying today. Based upon your community, based upon my community, and the first community that I'm talking about is our core community, right? Those who were responsible for teaching us and the environment that we were in growing up and gaining those first necessary skills of life. Okay, so based upon that environment can change different factors in your life, and I mean as well as health, because if you're not receiving a healthy diet, if you provided, poor, uh, unhealthy foods growing up, that can affect your diet, as an adult, okay, even as a teenager, right? Um, when you're not taught about finances, it's not taught to you in a healthy way, that can affect you growing up. If you are in an unhealthy mental, emotional environment, that can affect you. You can start experiencing different mental health issues and emotionally health issues based upon this environment. So these are just certain things that we're talking about. Even religion, people can go too far left, too far right. There's no balance. There's confusion. There's being excommunicated if you don't do this, you don't do that, and just, I mean, it's a lot that can affect you as an adult. Okay, so what do you do? What do you do when you are finding yourself in this situation in life, whatever your situation is, right? Whatever your struggle is right now in life. And then after, constantly evaluating and reviewing, and maybe you receive therapy, and then out of therapy you realize a lot of the things that you find yourself in right now in life is based upon your community, right? Based upon your environment, based upon that moment where you were supposed to receive those core values, right? And because of that, you're now in this place where you are. What do you do? Okay, let me start off with what you don't do. What you don't do is decide to ignore that. Okay, one of my pet peeves is when people know something is wrong, right? But they make a conscious decision to say, well, I am, whatever age, this is who I am. That's the end of it. I'm not going to change. Now, they're not happy. The people around them, they're making miserable. They're not reaching their full potential. They are in a bad, status in their life, but they have just made up in their mind, this is just what it is. There is, nothing I can do about it. I am 50 years old, I'm 60 years old, I'm 30 years old, whatever. And this is just who I am. Okay, that is one thing that really gets under my skin, when we say this is just who I am, knowing that, normally when people are saying that, they're saying that because there's something wrong. No one ever says that in a positive state. Like somebody say, "Oh my God, you just, you're a wonderful person. Your personality is great. Accomplished so much, and you're such a have a lovely demeanor, and you're such a giver." No one in response says, "Well, that's just, who I am, and I'm not gonna change." No, that is normally said when it's brought to the attention, when it's brought to the light, that there is some flaws, there are some issues, there are some concerns. And then you hear somebody say, well, that's just the way I am. That's just my personality. That's just who I am. So it's never said in a positive way. That is a cop-out. That is an excuse. That is a terrible excuse for deciding to stay in a place that you don't have to stay. And normally these individuals, like I said, it's not that you're just toxic to yourself, but you're toxic to those around you. And that's your excuse. Well, this is just who I am. Love me or leave me. Well, bye. Well, bye. They're going to leave you. You're going to be by yourself. No one wants to be around a toxic individual. So that's the first thing you don't do. You don't disregard it, and saying this is just who I am, love me or leave me, and that's the end of the story. Absolutely not. That is not a good character to have. So that's the first thing. We don't ignore it. We don't pretend like it don't exist. We don't just, function in chaos. Okay. Because we talked about this before in several podcasts where some people are just so used to their chaos that they'll stay there, even though it's an unhealthy place to be, even though it is, making them miserable and others around them miserable. But this is all that they know. So when people have a choice between something that's familiar and something that is foreign, they choose familiar. Hear me again. If people have a choice between what is familiar and what is foreign, they're going to choose what is familiar, even if it's chaotic, even if it is unhealthy, even if it is detrimental. They still would choose it because that's what they're familiar with. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage and confidence to break away from something that you're familiar with, something that brings you comfort, only because you are familiar with it. Okay, even though it is like a terrible cycle. Okay, so it's a terrible cycle, but it's familiar, so therefore it becomes my comfort. You ever heard of comfort in chaos, right? So you have individuals who are comfortable in this chaos, but it takes so much strength, it takes so much confidence to break away from this chaos, to break away from this. And I'm talking to those today who are uh, breakers. Okay, those who decide to break the cycle, those who decide to break generational curses off their lives. I remember writing the book Breaking Family Ties, and I just, was just reviewing, different things that my family had suffered. Okay, physical ailments and sickness and afflictions in young life, and died young, and I mean like literally died young, and it broke my heart to when I start to list the ailments, the sicknesses, the afflictions, and how that shortened their life. And so I began to think about these generational curses, and I went further and started thinking about finances and those who, have this repetitive cycle, of living in poverty, and begin to think about breaking that. In my household, I'm teaching constantly about generational wealth, right? And I don't mean just monetary, but I mean health, mental, emotional, as well as monetary. That's wealth, because you can have, financial wealth, but yet don't have the peace, the peace that comes, with knowing that you are covered, by God, and you're kept by God. That peace that surpasses all understanding, that will guard your heart and your mind. You might not have that. You might have the money, but not have that. But I'm looking for this ministry of the whole person, and that's why we're talking about this today. The ministry of the whole person is extremely important to me, and I really have started first in my first ministry, which is my home. So I often teach about protecting their physical health, protecting their mental health, protecting their emotional health, and working towards that financial uh, wealth as well. But it's a whole person, and I deal with that even with myself. Trying to find the balance, trying to make sure that I am not overextending myself, overworking myself, not taking care of the physical, not taking care of the mental. I mean, these are things that I do to myself as well. And so, in order for me to do that, there are so many layers that I've had to personally begin to pull off. Okay, because we're talking about community. We're talking about our original community, right? The community that once again have poured into us, that has taught us, that has nurtured us, right? And so we know that we've been affected by so many people in those core years of our life, right? And all of those individuals have impacted us in one way or another. And so at the point that you are here in your life, you got the good and you got the bad. No community is perfect. So you're gonna have the good and you're gonna have the bad. But some communities, some environments, of your upbringing, some people have had environments that are really, really hurtful, really hard, really treacherous. And these environments cause a lot of damage to individuals now as are adults. And so that's more layers. That's more layers. And so what I'm saying is we know what not to do, and that is to ignore. So if I don't ignore these things and say, I am who I am, what am I supposed to do, Michelle? What am I supposed to do when I was sexually abused as a young child? What am I supposed to do if right now I'm still dealing with that pain? I'm still dealing with that hurt that has affected my entire life. Nobody understands that. Nobody gets that because they think that I am now, 30 some odd years old and I'm supposed to be over something that happened to me when I was 10. But I'm not. I'm still carrying that baggage. I'm still carrying that load. I'm still carrying that on my shoulder. Come on, somebody. That's somebody's story. That is somebody's story. I decided to cope with the pain with drugs. Because in my household, that's what they did. They drank away their pain. They medicated away their pain. Nobody wanted to face what they were going through. So now I'm doing the same thing. Now all the things that I tried to forget is now haunting me. So now I am trying to find a way to cope. I'm trying to find a way to make it another day. And I'm not living in the moment, Michelle. I'm not living in the moment. I am just trying to function. I'm just trying to get through. Come on, somebody. Come on. That's their story. Somebody, that's their life. And because of that, we're finding people who are walking the streets in a zombie type of state of mind. They're just moving, but they're not living, you know? And I think what could be even more hurtful is when around them they feel like everybody else is thriving. Everybody else has figured it out and got it going on in their life. And I'm here in pain. I'm here suffering from something that happened to me when I was 10 or something that happened to me when I was 20. And I'm hurting from something that has, impacted my whole entire community, my whole entire household when I was, 7. And I'm still struggling with that. That's somebody's story. And for those individuals today who were in a position where things happen to you, not because of you. Come on, somebody. It happened to you and not because of you. This message today is for you. This message is to tell you that number one, you are loved. You are valuable. You are important. And you are not an accident. You are not a mistake. The fact that you're still alive, the fact that you're still here, the fact that you're able to even hear this message today shows you that you are loved and that God has taken the time out to show you that He knows that he cares, that he's seen it. He's not oblivious to what we go through. Come on. He's not oblivious. He's not sitting back with his hands tied in his back saying, yeah, I see it, but there's nothing I'm going to do about it. He doesn't get any pleasure out of seeing you or I hurt or struggle. But he is patiently waiting for us to say, you know what? I surrender all. I cannot do it on my own. I cannot make this on my own. I need help. And that's what we have to do. Be honest and say, I need help. This is hard. This is not something that I can carry. My shoulders are not built for this type of weight by myself. And what's so awesome about that is that he does not expect you or I to carry it alone. Because even in the scripture, the description of him is he is a heavy load sharer. So whatever load you are carrying, he is a heavy load sharer. So the first thing that we do is acknowledge it. Acknowledge the pain, acknowledge the core of the issue, wherever it started from, wherever the point is, the root of this issue is. Acknowledge that this happened to me, not because of me. This was done to me, not because of me. Be honest about that. And once you expose something, it's something amazing about hearing that out loud. It kind of strips away its power when you're able to vocally, even if it's just you by yourself in a room, it's something powerful about acknowledging something that has tried to hold you down, trap you, pull you, hold you hostage. Come on, somebody. It's something powerful about acknowledging that and saying, yes, I've been afraid for many years because of this, this, or that. Yes, I've been in pain for so many years because of this, this, or that. Okay? Yes, I've been angry. Come on, somebody. Somebody got some misplaced anger. I've been angry, but I've been angry really not at my kids, not at my spouse, not at my co-workers, not at the church, but I'm really angry at this that happened this many years ago. Get to the core. Be honest with yourself and say, look, that hurt. That was wrong. I was wronged. And people think that, some people say, what does it matter? What does it matter to say that or to acknowledge that? I'm fine, but you're not. You're not. When you look over, your life and you realize the choices that you've made, you realize, wow, I'm not okay. Like, I really should be way further than where I am right now in life, but I'm not there, and I wonder why. Start to review. I'm struggling in this area, and I don't know why. What is it? Why am I behaving this way? Why am I not good with my finances? Why am I so, easily angered? Why am I running to substance abuse, instead of dealing with what is it? What's really going on? Why am I, happy one moment and all of a sudden I just get really sad, depressed, and want to cry out the blue? Like, what really is the issue? Come on, somebody. Somebody's being helped today. Somebody's being helped today. What is the real issue? What is really going on? And sometimes, as I stated, you'll go back and you'll see it's this environment, and it's this to acknowledge that is not to pass blame on anybody specific at all. It's not about that. It's just the fact that, our environments really do develop who we are, you know. And to be honest, it's our strengths and our weaknesses. Okay, so just as you might have a personality where they say, man, you're strong. Just like, your grandfather was. He's a strong guy. And he went to work every day to take care of his family. And you're a family man just like that. But then on the other hand, they can also say, but he had a really, really bad drinking problem. You know, he had a really bad drinking problem. And he really caused a lot of, hectic environment in our family, right? And so what you got from that is I need to be strong. I need to be a hard worker. I need to take care of my family, right? But, it doesn't matter if I get a little drunk every now and then. If I can't hold my liquor, that's not my fault. My grandfather couldn't hold his liquor either. Let's get to the core. Let's get to the real core, So that's just a small example of how our environment kind of creates, the good and the bad values that we have. And, it can really, like I said, depending on the environment, how toxic it is, it could be really, really bad. It could be really bad. I think I've shared this story before, but I'm going to share it again. It was this very, young lady that I met many years ago. And as I was working, to help her and assist her, she had this little boy. This little boy probably was around maybe 4 years old. And he was literally just hitting her in my presence, like, just out of control, slapping her in the face, pushing her, just really just obvious to me, out of control. And whenever I come around, parents with unruly children, if I'm working with them or talking with them, I can't ignore it. I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to acknowledge the child. I'm going to acknowledge the parent, because I'm a parent. So, it's just, it's just in me. I'm a mom, right? And so I asked her, why is he hitting you that way? Why is he punching you? I don't understand why she's taking it, but maybe she was just doing it because she was in front of me, but she was just constantly trying to grab his hands and stop him and all of that. But there was no form of real discipline shown to him, no tone or eye contact or anything that would have worked with my kids, right? It was nothing that I saw her do. And so I was really confused. So the first thing I went to is, why is he doing this? And she just, she was young and inexperienced. And she just says, I don't know. She kind of thought it was kind of like a chuckle. I don't know why he does that. Ha ha. And I didn't think it was funny at all. And so he's smart, right? So he's listening to my questioning of her. And he interjected and said, well, that's because that's what my father does. That's what my daddy does, right? And I looked at her. I said, well, boom, there you go. Like, he answered the question for me. He answered the question to you. So this is his environment, right? He's an environment. He's a young baby, but already, because he's at that impressionable age, right? Where, we used to tell our kids, do as I say, not as I do. That doesn't work. I don't even know where that came from as adults, but it does not work. Kids is going to look first, seeing what you do, and they're going to mimic that behavior. So, just as laughing is contagious in his own way, so is that. So he's in this environment where his mother is being most likely physically abused. And, obviously the father is hitting her. And so him being a male child, he is literally mimicking the thing that he's seeing that his father's doing to his mother. Now, he wasn't doing it to me. I'm a woman. I'm a female. I'm sitting there. But he's doing it to her because in his mind, right, this is okay. She's accepting it from my father, so she's going to accept it from me. And if she doesn't stop that from the father as well as him, then, he's going to be exactly like his father, but eventually to somebody else. Okay. And it was just a very sad thing to hear and to see. But I was really, to be honest, impressed how smart this child was to let her know, hey, this is why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because it's what my daddy does. And that just goes to show, once again, you this young baby will grow up, and he can grow up and end up having a toxic environment with someone in his life, and be a miserable individual and not accomplishing the things that he could in life, because he can get in trouble and find himself, incarcerated, and not only affecting his life, but what affected the person's life that he's abusing. I mean, it becomes an awful cycle, right? An awful cycle. But this just goes back to what I'm saying about our environment, our community. It actually plays a huge part in what we struggle with. And so I say that because I want to make sure that when we are factoring in where we are in our life right now and where we need to be, we're factoring in the real roots. We're going back and we're looking at our environment, and we're seeing did this environment contribute to where I am right now? And once again, it's not to get mad at anybody. It's not to go make phone calls and say, look, here, it's your fault that I'm, dealing with this or dealing with that. Absolutely not. It's not for that at all. But it's so that you can get a better understanding of what you're dealing with, what you're really dealing with. And then that can help be a huge part of your healing process when you realize that, hey, I'm really, struggling with finding someone to love and spend the rest of my life with, because I don't trust men or I don't trust women, because not just because I think they're all shady or that they all up to something no good or they're all not trustworthy. No, but because what? I grew up in an environment where, the men or the women in my life were habitual cheaters, right? Habitual cheaters. Or someone hurt me, and they did something to me. And so now I don't trust anyone that is of that sex. So it's so many factors that can play a part into where you are right now in life. And you know what? I'm going to end, but I want to show you something. A lot of times, now this is from the outside looking at someone else's situation, right? A lot of times when someone is really bitter, right? And, it used to be a time in my life where I was just, had no patience for that. Like when you're just angry and bitter. But then over time and with discernment, and wisdom comes the acknowledgement that there is a root to their bitterness. There's a root to why they're so angry and so bitter. Now, does that justify them to behave the way they behave? No, because they have a right, just like anybody else, to reevaluate themselves and become a better version of themselves and do better. When we learn, we grow. When we grow, we're supposed to change, right? But it just allows you to look from a different perspective. It won't be as, we are not in a position to judge. I don't sit in the seat of judgment. That's something I don't do at all. I don't judge. But I really try to look at it from another view. So there's a lot of times where I see people, they're just so angry, so mean. Even people who I've seen just so outwardly racist, right? Or gender bias, right? And every part of me wants to just, just get real angry. But I realize, what toxic environment were they raised in that they have this mentality or this attitude or this piousness? Like, what environment were they, in that created that? Created that. And when I can look at it from that perspective, But sometimes it's just so clear to me, like, how angry or bitter someone is, that, oh my God, like, what are you dealing with? Like, what really is the issue? And I thank God for that, because it shows compassion a lot of times. And I want God to show compassion to me. Now, does it, once again, just give them the right to do whatever? No. Say whatever? Absolutely not. It just gives you another view of, okay, you know what? I can't allow them to make me bitter. I can't allow that to come and spew over to me, because obviously they're dealing with something else. So, like, you could be at work, or in a public place, and somebody just evil and just mean, just bitter and just angry, and you're just like, what is wrong? And if you don't watch it, this is something I haven't discussed before, but on the podcast, but there could be what I call a transference of energy. Transference of energy. We're going to talk about that in a podcast coming up soon. But that can literally happen, where you're around somebody, they're bitter, they're mean, they're evil, and the next thing you know, if you're not protecting and watching yourself, you will adopt that same energy, that same negativity. They'll make you go there, is what we call it, right? You end up going there, right where they are, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You want to be able to say, wow, like, this is a really angry person with some, real issues that's going on, and don't go there. Like, I'm not giving you that. I'm not going to, exchange this negative energy with you. I'm not going to exchange this negative dialogue with you. I'm not going to go back and forth with you with that, because obviously you have something going on. I come in with a good attitude, in a good mood, and trying to, take care of whatever, but you come with something different. And so it takes discernment, and in order for you to see that. It takes, the step back and the look, at it from a different perspective for you to see that. And so that's important too. So I just wanted to encourage you guys today to do some reflection. Do a little reflection today, and dig deep today into seeing, where you are. How did I get here? What was taught to me? What was done to me? What was shared to me? Who did I let impart into me? All these things play a huge part in where you are right now. And once again, some things it wasn't even, up to you. It was done to you, not because of you. So take that motto, share that motto, hashtag that motto, okay? And also make sure you hashtag and Renew My Revolution podcast. But it was done to you, not because of you. Listen, this has been an outstanding day. I've had an awesome time sharing with you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in to Renew My Revolution podcast. I hope that you have been blessed. Remember to go to Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, and check out the books, Breaking Family Ties, and Faith versus Fear. Look at me getting tongue-tied. But that's what happens when I ramble on for a long period of time. Love you, but most importantly, God loves you more. God bless you guys.